During my months of exploring the swamps of health at every size as a fat man, I started to notice a large bias within the supposedly inclusive movement. Women very heavily tip the scales in the world of fat acceptance, and this is evident in a number of ways. I realise that many of the individuals I watch or cover here are women, and to avoid accidentally perpetuating misogyny, I went looking for some haze men to slag off, only to discover that there basically aren't any. Body positivity in the traditional sense involves the acceptance of the features that make us imperfect, encouraging us to not judge our bodies so harshly and be comfortable in our own skin. This form of body positivity is the only thing I see being practiced by men, with male BOPO communities encouraging both self acceptance and self improvement. Unlike the overly competitive and fat focused female centric BOPO movement, the male centric forums focus on a range of insecurities such as height, build, hair loss, and disabilities. Which is great for me because at the minute, that's me. All of them, that is me. These spaces accept truly unchangeable factors such as those I just mentioned, but also highly encourage self improvement, whether it be improving fitness, social skills, confidence, life skills, or appearance. Fat men who are happy staying fat may also frequent these spaces, but unlike their female counterparts, they do not one up each other with their so called oppression or size, do not claim to be victims of fat phobia, and do not claim that class 3 obesity and above is healthy. Men may not be drawn to the raging identity politics of fat acceptance in high numbers, but there have been some prominent male advocates, and by some I mean one. I could only find one male fat activist, and he hasn't been publicly active in about 10 years. Atka was a man who ran a blog called Fierce Free Thinking Fatties, spouting haze garbage all day long. Even though he played by all of the Hayes community rules, said what they wanted to hear, and was fat enough to be allowed into the Chub Club, his own community turned on him in the end. Marianne Kirby is a white woman who considers herself to be the epitome of white ally to people of colour, posting now deleted smug articles about how other white people should aim to become as enlightened on racial issues as she is. I bring this up because she used her ignorant and reductive view of people of colour as a weapon to discredit and banish Achka from the world of Hayes. This all started when he passed comment on a Georgia hospital's ad campaign that focused on the dangers of childhood obesity, stirring up the usual sludge of buzzwords and outrage. Since fat activism is all about identity-based oppression Olympics, he was quickly shot down for not taking into account every single thread spun into the web of fat intersectionality. One such critic was actually a woman of colour, which Achka didn't know at the time, and he actually took her criticism fairly well and asked her if she'd like to help him improve his campaign. To me, I don't see what's wrong with this, and I find it refreshing to see a fat activist taking criticism on board and working to improve their rhetoric. Marianne did not feel the same, and fanned the flames of the angry fat community, hurling allegations of racism and misogyny. Apparently, Achka being willing to take on board the opinions of others made him a racist, homophobic bigot who was demanding the intellectual labour of black women since he supposedly needed instruction on how to act. Marianne also began to shame anybody who liked the guy and entered every forum that he frequented to tell everyone what an evil monster he was. It is widely accepted that Achka was only as demonised and nitpicked as he was, simply because he was a man. Misandry is a very contentious topic, which is due to be expected due to the fact that it's nuanced. Misandry, the hatred of men, is neither equal nor opposite to misogyny, the hatred of women. Both are products of the same culture, and I actually talk about this in my book if anyone's interested. Men's rights activists may believe that misandry is worse and far more prevalent than misogyny, whereas other people don't even believe misandry exists whatsoever. In the Hayes sphere, though, it definitely does. There are a few common sentiments within this community that not only drive men away, but objectify and vilify them. For those of you who haven't seen my video on the fat activist to turf horseshoe theory, this may be a good time to check that out, as I'm sure you'll notice a great deal of overlap in terms of the attitudes and behaviours towards men. The fat activist's identity not nature allows them to only think in black and white absolutes. Anybody who isn't as oppressed as they are is automatically an oppressor. Since the majority of fat activists are women who blame all of their problems on the fatphobic patriarchy, any and all men are turned into villains. The brand of feminism that is most commonly employed in Hayes circles not only demonizes men, but women who are more attractive than they are, women who are more able than they are, or women who are more successful they are. Where the turf punches down, the fat activist punches up. By taking a narrow and partisan view of patriarchy, both fat activists and turfs can reaffirm their own idiotic opinions by only complaining about the parts that inconvenience them, ignoring the bigger picture that proves they aren't really the victims they claim to be. It is true that misogyny plays a role in perpetuating unrealistic beauty standards or trends, but what the fat activist ignores is that it is usually women who are perpetuating them. Gossip magazine writers, social media snarkers, relationally aggressive bullies, and untruthful influencers who throw the most shade onto women over their appearances are mostly all women. For all that fat activists complain about beauty standards, they also perpetuate them. You will likely have seen countless posts talking about how thin women are evil and soulless, and how you are not a real woman unless you have curves or are fat. Thin or normal sized women are frequently called unattractive and compared to children, and anybody who finds them attractive is called a pedo. Women who are not fat enough for their liking are also shamed for being fake fat activists, and anybody who loses weight is accused of being a pick me, an agent of the patriarchy, or a fatphobic, racist, homophobic bigot. As well as bullying and misinformation, fat activists specialise in sexualisation and objectification of both men and women. Thin women are treated like sex objects who exist just to service evil, patriarchal fit men who are apparently spinning all of the plates, and their thoughts or emotions are treated as non existent. For example, here's a Tumblr post because, of course, it's Tumblr. To avoid making people pause to read the text posts, I'm going to be doing some dramatic readings for all the important ones in the future videos. Anonymous said, "Listen, Lizzo is great representation for fat people, but I'm sick of people saying that this is a real woman and that real women don't look like thin celebrities, but I do. As if thin people aren't women. I'm sick of being made to feel like everyone hates me because I'm thin. It's so upsetting." The owner of the blog then gave the mature and empathetic response of, "Wow, wow, I'm thin like celebrities and the fat ladies are pressing me. Wow!" I have no words. Not only do fat activists vilify and objectify thin women, they do the same to men. If anything, they're slightly worse towards the men, getting into full-blown creep mode at the drop of a hat. This post demonstrates these attitudes pretty well, and I probably won't show too many of these posts since there are tons of them. Hey, my fellow fat positive babes, I just wanted to show you the type of guy you deserve. Just because you may not be as conventionally attractive doesn't mean a man like this won't love you. Now, if a guy can't see past your rolls of fat, it just means he may be insecure about dating a beautiful goddess like you. Don't be afraid to go out and get a fit man, because opposites do attract sometimes. Also, since weight is entirely genetic, a man discriminating based on weight is the same as discriminating by gender or race. There's an awful lot to unpack here. The first part of this was based somewhat in reality since it acknowledged the fact that superfats aren't conventionally attractive, which is a very low bar, but many fat activists still manage to trip. By not pretending that morbidly obese women are the most attractive and beautiful goddesses in the world, I can give them some credit. Oh, wait, maybe not. If a man doesn't want to date you, it's because he's insecure about himself. There's no such thing as a preference. If you don't find someone attractive, it's because they're making you feel insecure. By this logic, why do fat women suddenly deserve a fit man? Surely they're also insecure bigots if they feel entitled to fit men and not fat ones. Also, the use of the word fit is pretty weird, since they claim that obesity has nothing to do with health or fitness. The use of words such as goddess is fairly typical of fat activist blog posts, enlisting further ideas of divinity and thus entitlement to mere lowly men. To drive the point home even more, The author then makes idiotic statements to try and make men who don't find them attractive look like bigots. At this point, I basically need a bingo card. We've got the usual garbage, such as equating thin men not wanting to shag fat women with racism and sexism. We've got mindless and indignant claims that obesity is not just genetically influenced, but entirely genetic, and the word discrimination. I did say I won't be including too many of these, but I just couldn't resist putting in this one. It would win you a full house in a game of buzzword bingo. If you only think thin women are attractive, or you only ever reblog images of thin women, or you mostly do, maybe investigate that. Oh, so people aren't allowed to have types or aesthetic preferences? Of course we are. But when our types align as strongly with Western imperialist patriarchal ideals as traits like white or thin or young or feminine, then we should probably, dig into why we're attracted exclusively to one or more of these things. Fat activists constantly equate imperial Western ideals with men not being attracted to land whales. Just wait until they find out how much thinner people are in most Asian countries. Also, imagine if you tried to unpack every single preference a person had. Why is it alright to have every other preference except women who aren't morbidly obese? I'm sure they wouldn't have this extreme reaction to a man who only wanted to date fat women. In case it's, the inescapable patriarchal propaganda making us complicit in the punishment of women who deviate from those demands. How do I investigate that? Ask yourself questions when you find a thin woman attractive. What is it I am attracted to about this woman, other than her thin body type? Ask yourself questions when your eyes slide over a fat woman with the same style or attitude of thin women you find attractive. What is it about her that makes her invisible to me? Or what is it about her that awakens the feeling of negativity, or disgust, or of camaraderie rather than attraction? I don't expect this post to change anybody's preferences or actions, and I'm not making it to shame anybody. I'm just exhausted by the relentlessness with which thinness is championed and fat bodies are erased from existence, and particularly from desirability. And I'm tired of the fact that I do have to notice it every second of every day, while almost everybody is free from thinking about it at all. First of all, you're equating someone's preferences to racism and misogyny, so I genuinely don't know how that isn't shaming people. Second of all, do they know that men are capable of looking at more than just the body? It doesn't matter how thin or fat you are. If you're pretty dirty looking, you don't take care of yourself, or you just have an unattractive face, people probably won't find you attractive. Plenty of fat activists have unflattering hair dye or facial piercings too, so maybe that's what's turning people off, or maybe it's their weird, desperate femcel energy that's doing it. Finally, if you spend every second of every day worrying about people not wanting to shag you, there's a problem, and you ought to touch some grass. Hashtag fatphobia is held to varying degrees for everyone, but as a fat woman, I'm making this post about women. Hashtag maybe expose yourself to diverse body types and then we'll all calm down. Hashtag I'm just so tired. Hashtag this is particularly painful when it's fellow queer people. Hashtag we deviate from the norm. We play with gender expectations, except when it comes to the expectation of thinness. The tags are usually the most saturated with delusion, and this isn't any different. Fat phobia isn't exactly hell, since being fat is a choice, and if fat phobia was ruining your life that much, you could just lose weight instead of whinging online all day. They're also acting like we aren't all attracted to morbid obesity because we haven't seen enough diverse body types, which is stupid since the majority of people in Western countries are overweight or obese. They're also employing the slur queer, which doesn't really surprise me since they love the idea of being abnormal. Apparently, anyone who isn't 100% cis or straight isn't allowed to have standards either, and all of us are meant to be giving out X rated favours out of sympathy or something. I also don't see how playing with gender expectations has anything to do with being unattractive. It's as if they think they'll be immune from criticism if they act as non-conforming as possible in order to gain some oppression points. Romantic discrimination aside, there's an even more powerful form of hatred towards men in the rotund community. Fit men, like thin women, are objects apparently. Fat women are beautiful Aphrodites, but what about all the fat men like myself? Fat men need to die. This whole society hates fat women, but fat men especially hate fat women. And then they have the fucking audacity to complain about beauty standards and whatnot, even though it doesn't affect them. Fucking pieces of shit. All men should just die. Hashtag fatphobia. Hashtag don't you fucking dare reblock this if you think fatphobia isn't real. Hashtag as if you fucking skinny women have any idea what fat women have to go through. Well, consider my timbers fully shivered. I guess I'll have to start going to the gym soon if I want to live. Oh, wait, that's fatphobic too. Time to go die in a pit of shame then. Fat activists are mainly lonely, terminally online, socially inept, obese women for the same reason that incels are usually lonely, terminally online, socially inept, creepy men. The people that they are desperate for approval from are the enemy. The people that they're jealous of are the enemy. The people who have shared experiences but aren't oppressed enough are also the enemy. Fat activists actively despise fat men in the same way that incels actively despise women that they don't find attractive enough for them. Fat activists despise male fat activists because they aren't oppressed enough. Incels hate femcels because they aren't oppressed enough. Incels feel entitled to attractive women and despise them when they can't get them. Fat activists feel entitled to attractive men and despise them when they can't get them. These people enjoy wallowing in their own misery and narcissism so much that they reject anybody or anything that could meaningfully improve their lives or communities and act like victims whilst doing it. Maybe this actually answers my original question of where all the insecure fat men are. Maybe they're all just incels. Thank you for watching. If there are any fat haze men, please make yourself known in the comments. I promise that my viewers are nice. They won't do anything to you. I'm just kind of interested to hear where you're coming from. What got you into haze? Are you still in haze? Did you leave haze, or are you more of a body positivity kind of guy? Anyway, again, I will apologise if the uploads are a little light on the ground at the minute, or if they're not the highest quality, but I'm living in a hell worse than fat phobia, if you can even believe that. So, anyway, thanks as always for watching. I'm not going to shill too hard, but just a reminder, my other video is now available on Patreon, where it is uncensored, and supporting that helps to keep this channel uncensored. Goodbye.